In the first assignment, you've been asked to draw a mental map. We intentionally did not introduce you to the concept of a mental map, the mapping method, or the underlying theory, so that you could engage with the idea without preconceptions. In this video, I will tell you more about what you did and why it matters, and how you can use it to educate others.
First, let us ask, what is a mental map? A mental map shows elements that are present in the city or are thought to be present in one. The person who draws the mental map places them in relation to each other. The result is a map that may have some sort of geographic resemblance to maps we all know, that is, cartographic city maps, with places, place names or buildings drawn.
Every person draws a different mental map. There's no right or wrong, just a wide variation. Elements may have been placed on a different location than where we can find them in reality. Mental maps are defined as a person's point of view of an area of interaction. So, in the first assignment, you have been the person and the area of interaction is the port city of your choice. You have drawn whatever you could remember about this port city.
Experience teaches us that not every result is a mental map. Some people, when asked to draw such a map, may draw a mind map, or an assembled image of associations, as I call it. A mind map is a more diagrammatic representation of information. It consists of notions, words, with lines in between them to visualize relations. A hierarchy goes along with the drawing in such a mind map. What is put first on paper may be considered as being in front of somebody's mind. And what has the most links may be considered as the most important. Such interpretations are conjectures, however, and need to be reconfirmed by the authors of the map. An assembled image of associations works more or less the same way. It is also a diagrammatic representation of information, yet consisting out of symbols and icons. Relations between different spatial elements are less clear, as all emerge in one image. Although both mind maps and assembled images of associations are not considered as mind maps, they may be useful for understanding the relation between space, society and culture, because they offer subjective information about what is remembered. Second, why do we want mental maps? Well, usually we ask people to draw mental maps in order to determine subjective qualities, such as personal preferences for specific places. Comparing broader sets of mental maps provide us with intersubjective images of cities. It provides us with people's mutual awareness of a city, and with this, people's implicit agreement on shared definitions of this city. In this case, we want to know what are the personal memories of a port city. Participants often draw something that relates to the port city in question, and that has manifested itself in their memory. In an overlap of all mental maps, we recognize similar buildings, similar districts, similar lines. Sometimes buildings, districts and lines are even the same ones drawn. Apparently, the majority of the people participating remember similar elements, if not the same. In the case of port cities, most people may have drawn a river or a coastline as a key reference for their mental map.
Such recurring elements form a shared image of the city. the image of the city, as the American urban planner Kevin Lynch called this in 1960. I would like to emphasize that there's not necessarily one image of the city. In fact, different groups in society may have their own specific shared images. For example, dock workers may remember different elements than office workers.
Third, what kinds of mental maps prevail? Although there are many differences in terms of map qualities, elements displayed, and accuracy, both among different groups of people as well as within these groups, we can roughly determine 3 types of mental maps. 1. Maps depicting elements like buildings, or even whole neighborhoods drawn 3-dimensionally. That is, in perspective. 2. Maps depicting street networks and plots or urban areas drawn 2-dimensionally. In other words, in a plan view. 3. Maps depicting abstract physical relations in space. The American environmental psychologist David Cantor has highlighted these differences of spatial representation. He pioneered in studying interactions between people and the built environment. People may have an inborn or a trained focus on, respectively, objects, networks, and/or relationships. I have seen architects in training who have more an eye for objects, urban designers who mostly outline outdoor urban spaces, and professionals in urban governance who tend to focus on an abstract spatial relation level. Experience teaches us that many mental maps are hybrid, merging multiple ways of representation. Last, what do we see on a mental map? Despite different types of map making, we do see similar elements appearing in mental maps. Paths, edges, districts, nodes, and landmarks, as Lynch called them. They are often found in mental maps because people recognize these while experiencing the city. I will use some mental maps of Rotterdam to explain this, and also introduce the terms paths, edges, district, nodes, and landmarks, introduced by Kevin Lynch to analyze them. Respondents have experienced specific paths in a city, no matter how they have moved and where to. They remember and draw a few connections. A street or a railway leading to a river, for example. They have also faced edges or boundary lines. These are drawn too. For example, quay-walls, fences, facades along which one walks, or more porous dividing lines between 2 characteristic areas of any kind. Some areas are known or at least reproduced in a less detailed manner. Such areas are called districts when they're drawn. This includes vaguely known areas such as the massive man-made extension of the port in Rotterdam, the Maasvlakte 2, a port area at the mouth of the River Meuse, some 40 kilometers from the city center. Each personal path may cross others, merge, or at a certain point become very crowded. Such places could be considered as nodes. Examples include roundabouts, cruise terminals, or marketplaces. While respondents experience the port city in a unique fashion, some elements always stand out. And these then are called landmarks. elements which are recognizable and used for navigation through the city. The iconic Erasmus Bridge, for example, clearly stands out in most mental maps of Rotterdam. In this set of mental maps, I have also found icons or abstract symbols. These indicate and represent the character of a place, or it presumes identity. These symbols are often a combination of objects and places that the person drawing the map has personally experienced, and impressions they have gained through diverse media. For example, participants draw container stacks in the harbor area, most surely without having seen them personally. These are located on extensive, largely inaccessible private premises and can only be viewed from a distance, as when passes by on a highway, for example. Yet when it comes to Rotterdam, such images are widely distributed on the internet. They are part of a larger narrative that port and city actors tell about the city to underscore its role as a global port. So, whether people have experienced the port city or not, they are informed through diverse types of media. They may have seen or read about the Panamax ships and cranes. But when it comes to making a mental map, they draw a kind of old-school crane. People tend to associate all kinds of elements with the port cities in terms of iconographics and online public information, whether or not they have experienced it themselves. People may have drawn various kinds of elements on paper that they associate with port cities or ports in general.
People are constructing a mental image of a port city that support select port city narratives. Mental mapping is a way to explore individual and collective maritime mindsets. Understanding the way in which diverse stakeholders think about their port city can be used as a tool to build up a shared port city culture and to facilitate future design. The method helps them to build up a mental representation of the port city.